Good morning. Welcome to Get Real America.
Where we are trying our level best to get to the bottom of the truth and find out exactly what's going on and how you're being lied to daily by the lamestream media and others in the Democrat Party, but I repeat myself.
I'm Brittany Brown.
She certainly is. We're glad you're with us. Well, kids are back in school for the most part. Used to be you'd go back the day after Labor Day, but now we start in the middle of July in many places. And they've just started here in our local areas. One of our schools just started back today as we speak. Meanwhile, there's a teachers union up in Minnesota. God bless them. The Minneapolis Federation of Teachers, as a union, a school district, states that white teachers are going to be laid off before any other teachers, regardless of seniority.
So we are laying off teachers based off the color of their skin instead of their capabilities as a teacher.
Now, I don't know how they determine if they're white teachers or not, because they can't tell the difference between a male and a female, so we have to get to this. But the agreement was reached at the end of a 2-week teacher strike last spring, and the teachers were out striking. I just love some of the signs that we were seeing are on strike for smaller classes. We keep hearing that. Now, I grew up in the baby boomer age where we had about 40 kids in a class. And we had no trouble learning stuff because we paid attention, and the teacher was Lord. Whatever they said was absolutely the last word, and you respected the teachers. The thought of talking back to a teacher or striking a teacher or anything of that nature was totally unheard of. Things you got in trouble for was chewing gum in class, getting caught in the hall without a hall pass. Oh God, let me slit my wrist. Now, the teachers on strike for smaller classes, living wages, whatever a living wage is. I always heard about affordable housing. I'm living in a house I can afford. I don't live in one of the richer places in this town called the Landings, because I can't afford it. And even if I lived there, I'd have to have a helicopter. But that's another story. But the agreement goes on to say that they are going to fire the white teachers. I love the way the agreement was reached after a 2-week strike, like I said last spring. Says that starting this school year, I want you to listen to the wording of this. If accessing a teacher, I love the words that they use here. I love the legally accessing a teacher. That means firing them, who is a member of a population underrepresented among licensed teachers in the site. The district shall access next least senior teacher who is not a member of the underrepresented population. Who in this population is not underrepresented besides single white people?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, but here's the other thing that it begins to be. Here's the thing. It starts to get ridiculous when they start saying this, but then, okay, so I'm a white woman, so do I get seniority because I'm a woman over, like, how does the hierarchy work there?
Or somebody who identifies
as
a woman.
Yes, or can I magically say, you know what, I actually identify as a male, making me transgender, therefore you can't fire me?
Yeah.
I mean, how ridiculous are we going to continue to get with this stuff? I mean, I told you the story of my friend that got kicked out of a South Carolina bar because she went into the men's restroom. There's a long line in the ladies' room. She went into the men's restroom. Security guard knocked on the door and was like, you have to leave. And she pulled the card of, well, I identify as a male. He wasn't buying it. She got kicked out. And you know what? I don't blame them. I think we need to have an end to this craziness, because we can't have people just identifying as whatever they feel like. I identify as a millionaire, so who's going to give me $1 million?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that something I can do?
Yeah, and well, as of today, the president is finally coming back from his vacation up the road from us here at Kiowa Island, right off the coast of Charleston, in a $27 million mansion, and he's going to be signing the Anti-Inflation Act, or whatever the hell they call it, and that's going to really help things. I'm just amazed at everything that they do. And the man's got a Midas touch. Everything he puts his hands on turns into a muffler. And the Democrats are making things worse every day, and then they're trying to tell you that it's your fault. and that you should live on less. You should be happy with what you have. And look at what's happened, because we had zero inflation last month, and the price of gas has come down like 82 cents in the last month or two.
But diesel's still going up.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And diesel impacts our food costs. It impacts the price of goods.
What runs on diesel? All the 18-wheelers that bring everything to the grocery store, all of the tractors that all help grow all of this stuff on the farms, and I can assure you that they can't be switched to electric vehicles anytime in the near future. And even if they did, that's also a boondoggle.
Well, absolutely. Well, and I don't think people understand what we're going to be facing in this country in the next 6 months, because we haven't even seen the impact of the fertilizer. I mean,
No.
and farmers couldn't afford to run all of their equipment. So there were a lot of fields that never got planted this year. And so we have not seen the outcome of this fiasco that the Biden administration's created. And it's not going to be easy moving forward in this country because of what they've done.
Add that to the drought that is happening in a lot of these farm areas, and you have got a huge, huge problem. You think we have food shortages now? We're just on the tip of the iceberg. So you better be ready, because we're going to be Banana Republic here very shortly. And I keep insulting the Banana Republics because most of them are run a lot better than what we're running this country on now.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to, I mean, I understand maybe smaller countries and things like that, but the United States is huge. How are we being put in this situation? We, the people, need to be better about getting involved and making sure that our voices are heard, because this stuff can't happen. I mean, when people start to not have food, it's going to get really crazy in this country.
Can you say anarchy?
And we've seen it over, I'm not saying things are dumb, but I'm just saying, like, some of the stuff that people care about is not nearly as important as basic needs like food.
And they're going to blame climate change on everything.
Oh my gosh.
Because I mean, we do have a drought. I think one of the reasons we have climate change is because of the environmentalists, who will cause us to convert to a lot of crap that's not worthless. That is not only worthless, it is actually damaging to the environment. Like those electric cars that we're talking about. A lot of farmland is being taken up now by solar panels or windmills.
Yep.
Which only work when the wind is blowing, and they can't blow over a certain speed, or they can't use them. The solar panels, of course, only work when we have the sun up.
Well, not only that, those windmills, they only last, those blades, about 10 years, and there's no way to recycle them. So then they're burying them in these mass graves, which I'm sure that's not good for the environment, for them to be buried.
And where are most
in
of
our
them
dirt.
made? Where are most of the windmills made?
I think it's like a country called China.
Where are most of the solar panels made?
I think it's China again. Can you fact check me on that, Bill?
No, I don't need to. It's China. 90% of the, I think it's not, at least 98% of the solar panels are made in China. And something like 60 to 80% of the windmills are made in China. Now, think about that for a minute.
Well, and I'm pretty sure, isn't China the #1 polluter of the world? I'm just curious.
As a matter of fact, they are.
Oh, that's interesting. I
And
wonder
so-
why we would do that, supporting pollution.
And
like
all
we are.
and the machinery and all of the equipment that makes these green energy devices is powered by coal-fired power plants.
No way.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. That's
No,
not what they're telling me.
you
They're telling me
can't
that.
make this stuff up. Unbelievable. Who's building coal-fired power plants? China.
Well, not only that, the mining for the lithium is actually very damaging to the environment.
Cobalt.
Yes.
And why do you think that China is so heavily invested now in countries in Africa? Because that's where a lot of these minerals are.
Do you
And
think the African people are going to get rich off this?
that's what they tell them? No,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, they're going to be just as poor as they were. In fact, they're going to be probably even worse off because of the slavery that's going to be taking place. Or many of them are already under slavery, dictators and things, people of that nature.
Well, I think their environment will also get worse. Their air quality, all of that will get worse because of the mining that they're going to be doing there, which they keep telling us is the way to go, environmentally. But I think when you look at the big picture, we really should not be moving forward with a lot of this stuff until Probably never, actually.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's a good idea. I think that there are definitely more alternative options for environmentally friendly things, and they just refuse to go that direction because they're all already invested in lining their pockets with this environmental stuff that they've come up with.
We have 2 nuclear power plants that are set to come online in Georgia here in the next 3 to 4 years. And we are the only state that has started constructing a nuclear power plant. South Carolina started, but they gave up because of the cost overruns. We were the benefactor of that because we got all those people that were working on theirs coming over to finally work on ours. But there's been cost overruns on ours as well because, for one thing, we haven't built a plant here in 40 years when we should have been keeping up. We're like, everybody said, well, do it like Europe, do it like France. Well, France is 80% nuclear power. And we should be, I would think, 50 to 80% nuclear power. I think we're about 10 to 12%. And, nuclear energy is the most efficient, it is the cleanest, and it works 24/7. It doesn't need the wind to blow, it doesn't need the sun to shine, it works all the time. And I don't know if they're going to stop our nuclear power plants from being built or not, because they just stopped a huge plant that was going to supply something like 700,000 kilowatts in Michigan, I believe, that was 98% complete and was running on, I believe it was going to be natural gas, but whatever it is, some fossil fuel, and they stopped it just a couple of weeks ago.
Do you know why it was stopped? Was it stopped because of the governor, or was it stopped at the federal level? Do you know?
It's probably a combination of the two, because they're all idiots. But the worst part is that here was this plant that was about to go online that was going to supply electricity to thousands and thousands of businesses. Businesses run on electricity too. So if their costs go up or they can't get access to it, that means less product or less people working, and shutdowns that we're going to have, brownouts or anything else that we're going to start experiencing, especially if we start going to all these electric vehicles that they want us to have, because electricity isn't free. They talk like it is. When you hear Pete Bootylicious and his Confederates talking about this, our transportation secretary, or the other super incompetent minister of energy, I want to say Whitmire, she's now the governor of Michigan. The previous governor of Michigan, who's head of the Department of Energy, is doing for America what she did for Michigan. And by the way, both of these people have investments in electric vehicle stocks.
That couldn't be why they're so supporting this. That couldn't be the reason.
And
Not at all.
We were talking about the evacuation process of storms, especially hurricanes here in the southeast, especially, of what would happen. We had all these electric vehicles out on the highway, and they're running out of charge and waiting for the Energizer Bunny to come by and reinvigorate them. The people in the Northeast are talking about the same thing with their storms.
Well, not only that, I think that there's also going to be some capability to shut these vehicles off in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I always think of what the government can do with power, and when I start thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, we should not do this. We should not do this at all. I also think when you look at, I'm hoping that the Supreme Court case that we saw come down in June with West Virginia against the environmental department will help facilitate more of the states being able to take control of their own energy policies. Mm-hmm. Because, I think that was a big win for us. I don't think it's talked about enough, but I do think that, hopefully if we keep our Republican governor, whatever you think about him, hopefully he would stand up and say, no, we're going to continue working on this nuclear plant and we're going to get it online. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we get Miss Abrams in, if that would be the case. I think that she would do her best to shut that down.
Yeah. She would do anything that she can to destroy Georgia, because she's already, all of the other policies that she's talked about of defunding the police and others, and members of her friends at Black Lives Matter when they're killed by the police. That's the only time Black Lives Matter to BLM, when they're killed by the cops.
I don't even think it's that anymore. It's any time they can create any sort of chaos in regards to anything. They went after a woman that was terrorized by this guy, was shooting at her and her children, who are black, and
she is too.
Yeah, exactly. And Black Lives Matter showed up because he was killed because he was he was killed by the police because he was after her, and they had just moved into that apartment.
After 2 hours of negotiations with this guy, of trying to get him, please, calm down, put down the weapon, quit doing this, and finally it just became inevitable that this isn't going to be resolved any other way except, by killing him. And they did, and then here comes BLM, and she's screaming at these people. Says, this isn't George Floyd, you don't need to erect a statue to this guy and make him, to make this a federal holiday. You need to, I'm black, my kids are black, this guy was shooting at us. What do you think you're doing?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's they wreak havoc wherever they can, and the real story is never told because they have their own version of it. And it makes it really hard for us in this country to get to the truth about what's happening. And, when someone's a victim, they are a victim. And we've allowed these people that are criminals to become the victim. And I think that that's wrong.
It is, from the standpoint of when Glenn Beck a few years ago said, in 5 or 10 years you will not recognize your country. Well, here we are. I feel like I'm waking up every day in a parallel universe, that this couldn't have possibly happened. And yet it did. And it happens by incrementalism. And what gets me, what bothers me about the people on the Republican side and sometimes Republican candidates, well, we can't fix this overnight. Well, it didn't happen overnight either. You elect a bunch of Republicans and say, well, okay, that's going to get it fixed. It's not. Especially if the Republicans don't grow a backbone. I'm tired of waiting on that as well. Maybe we can get some geneticists to figure out to get some Republicans with backbones.
100% agreed. I think that's a huge problem for the Republicans, is that they don't like necessarily being in power because they like the fact that they can say, we're doing the best we can, but our hands are tied. We don't have control. It's like, you guys have got to continue to fight. I don't care what it looks like, but sitting on your hands is not helping any of us, and we voted for you.
Obamacare is a perfect example.
Oh.
When for 3 campaign cycles they said we will get rid of Obamacare, thinking that they were never going to get back in power. If you give us the House, we can do this. We gave them the House. They didn't do it. Well, we really need the Senate too. We gave them the House and the Senate. They still didn't do it. Well, we need the presidency. They didn't think Donald Trump was going to get elected. He did. Okay, now we have all 3. Obamacare comes up for a vote, and they voted to keep it. There you have it.
I mean, talking about Republicans being spineless, I think that there is a problem in the party. And I just want to touch on this because it's something I've been hearing, especially in election year. You know what? We're upset with how the primaries went. We don't like our Republican people that are running and that we have to vote for. So I'm just going to withhold my vote for these people and teach them a lesson.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see the lesson that we've been taught now that they did that the last time on the runoff when we could have had
Purdue.
When Purdue in instead of Raphael Warnock. We could have had Kelly Loeffler staying in office rather than John Ossoff. And so those 2 empty seats are now up, and we do have some encouraging news on the Warnock level, that the gap between him and Herschel Walker has closed to be extremely marginal, and right now about 50-50. Why anybody would vote for Warnock is beyond my comprehension, but still, the race there was a big gap, at least a 5-point gap at one point a few weeks ago. It's now down to practically 0.
Well, and I think it shows that Herschel's actually ahead by 2
Mm-hmm.
points, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good news for Republicans. And you know what? I think one thing to touch on with Herschel is he's not a politician. So I don't think we can have the same expectation of him as we do of other people. He's going to be just like us. He's probably not going to be as well spoken, but he stands for freedom. He stands for our values. And I think that that's important for people to realize and give people grace. They make mistakes in their lives, and he's not perfect, but I do think that he is going to be a great candidate for us to vote for.
Well, there's only been one perfect person in world history, and look what they did to him. So we are flawed people, and Herschel will make up for his mistakes. I think some of the things that we're seeing in some of the ads against him are actually fabricated.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's the whole game with the left, is that they make things way bigger than they are, and they twist the truth to make their narrative work for them.
Mm-hmm. And you're listening to and watching Get Real America. Coming back, if you're a white teacher in Minnesota, your job is on the line. Next.
First of all, what I can do to make things better is bring people together. I love this country. I believe in peace through strength. If we have no strength, we're gonna have no peace. I believe in backing the blue. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everybody should have a chance to have their faith. Do we have problems? Yes. Can we solve them? Yes. Georgia is my family. The United States is my family. So I'm gonna fight and take care of them.
I'm Herschel Walker, and I approve this message.
Welcome back. We are now talking about if you're in Minnesota, you better watch out if you're a teacher and you're white.
Yeah. One of the problems that they're having up there now is, of course, kids going back to school, and they've decided that, of course, that one of the reasons that they're having so much trouble is because of you parents.
Oh my gosh, you guys are the problem. Why are you telling teachers how to teach the kids?
Yes.
They're not your kids, actually. They belong to the government. Did you know that?
Yeah, that apparently is the case. This is one of the things that the hideous things about teachers' unions, and the teachers' unions up in Minnesota have decided that if you are a white teacher, if they have to excise them, meaning fire them, then the white teacher is going to be fired regardless of seniority before any member of an underrepresented population teacher of color for the most part. And I want to know who is an underrepresented person in this society these days. Who gets underrepresented more than anybody else? Usually single white people.
I mean, here's the thing. They make us the villain all the time, and I hate to see, I mean, we're a majority of the population. I mean, that's just how it is, and I could go into why I think that is, but we'll save that for another day, Bill. But they make us the villain, and really, I mean, when the pendulum swings, it's not going to be good when we continue to get, I mean, it really is racism. We're white, so we don't get the same opportunities because they have to meet their quotas, and we have too many white people already. So even though you're qualified, we have to go with the less qualified person. How is that right? How is that American?
Well, how does that teach your kids? And what lesson are they? Because they are teaching it. Paul Harvey always used to say when teachers were on strike, said even though they're on strike, they're still teaching.
Yeah, well, and I
think. What are the people learning from that? What are the kids learning from that?
If you stomp your feet and cry loud enough, you'll get your way. I mean, that's how I feel like we've turned a whole generation into activists. And what are they? They're always upset about something. Always.
Smaller class sizes. We don't need smaller class sizes. We just need kids to pay attention. We need discipline in the classrooms, and we need kids to pay attention to the teachers. As I mentioned, I was a member of the baby boomer generation where we had sometimes as many as 40 kids or more in a class. We paid attention to the teacher. And if we got out of line and she gave it, all she had to do was give one of those cross-eyed looks, and the place you could hear a pin drop within seconds. And they got back to teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. They taught you how to think, not what to think. I have no idea, with the exception of one teacher that I had in my entire 13 years before college. Yes, I managed to cram a 12-year curriculum into 13. And I enjoyed the 5th grade so much I went through it twice. But I couldn't tell you the politics of any of my teachers, save one. Only because I saw a bumper sticker on the back of his car supporting Lyndon Johnson for president. Other than that, but he was fair-minded. I mean, that never came up in the classroom when we discussed it between classes or something like that. But it was never discussed in classroom, and he continued to teach what he was supposed to. Happened to be my German teacher, but he taught other subjects as well. But politics was never an issue in our classes. It was always learning reading, writing, arithmetic, biology, chemistry, whatever it was, you were learning something that was useful that you could apply in life, even though you didn't think so at the time. Why am I taking algebra, for goodness sakes? What am I going to use this for? If you become if you're a civil engineer, electrical engineer, whatever, comes in a little handy.
Yeah, but I think teaching people not only just out of a book, but also I think teaching them applied skills, so teaching them to build something and why they would need to use that. I think that that's important because I think that people can grasp things in a better way. I also think we've gotten to a point in our country where we're like a catering society. That's why they want people to have smaller classrooms. They want that one-on-one attention. And I don't think that that makes us stronger. I think that that makes us weaker because we think that we deserve more attention. We need more attention. And that's just, also backed by the social media that we use. How many likes can I get? You're always posting all the time. I mean, how often do you go out, Bill, and you see these children, and even people my age, I guess, with their little cell phones out trying to get the perfect shot of them and whatever's behind them, and they don't ever just enjoy the moment. It's always about what they can get on Instagram and how many likes they can get.
We have people who actually are taking pictures with their phones of somebody they could actually be going to the rescue of, but they'd rather have a video of it so they could either sell it to a network or they could send it to their friends or something along those lines, when what they should be doing is going to the rescue of whatever was going on, or get the hell out of the way.
Well, I also think it's made people just live in like an alternate reality. They don't even understand the impact of what's going on. Instead, oh my gosh, I got to get this for the gram. I got to post this. So, I mean, I don't know. I think social media has really altered the way that younger people think and how they react to things, and their first thought is not to help someone.
Well, the agreement that was reached by these teachers after a 2-week strike that took place last spring says that a starting school teacher, and once again, you just love the language that's put in here, if accessing a teacher, accessing meaning fired, who is a member of the population underrepresented among licensed teachers in the state, the district shall access the next least senior teacher, who is not a member of an underrepresented population. I just love the legalese garbage that they use on these things. So accessing teachers is the process in which a staff is reduced at a particular school due to a drop in enrollment or funding or other reasons. And an agreement further goes on to say that when reinstating teachers, the district shall, quoting here, prioritize the recall of teachers who are members of a population underrepresented among licensed teachers in the district. Once again, what do we mean by underrepresented? Who's underrepresented these days? When everybody gets to have their say, except those of us on the conservative side.
I can't even answer that, Bill, because I think we've reached a point in the country where we were doing pretty good. I think that, a lot of people didn't think about race. They didn't think about all of the ideology that we now are constantly hit with every day. And I don't know. I think now we've gone backwards. There are people that now want segregation. What are we doing?
Yeah.
So
I grew up during the civil rights era when they were having all the riots and everything, and then we grew up in a very segregated world. The first time I actually went to school with a person of color was my sophomore year in high school.
Wow.
And there were 2 in the school, and they were basically plants that were put there by the NAACP, Friends of the National Association of Always Complaining People. And it was just unbelievable when I got to college, and I went to Ole Miss, which was of course had the riots there. The James Meredith riots. Was the first black to attend the university 3 years before I got there. But what was interesting to me was how the black students who were there kept wanting to segregate themselves. They went to the dean of housing saying they wanted an all-black dormitory. And if the chancellor, we had a great chancellor, he looked at some of the first time he got this thing, said, well, that sounds reasonable, we'll give you this, this, and this. I mean, that's not a big deal. All of a sudden, a week later, they say, the chancellor hasn't met our 10 demands. wait a minute, there should be 7 because he met 3 of them. No, they came up with 3 more that they put on the list. And they would say, we want an all-black dormitory. The Dean of Housing had to explain to these geniuses, if the Housing and Urban Development people found out that we had a segregated dorm on the Ole Miss campus, our federal funds would be cut off like that. And you guys would be the first to go. Oh, didn't think of that.
I think that that's usually the problem, is that people don't think about the whole picture. They only think about themselves. They only think about what they want. And, you know, and I can't imagine living through the civil rights and all of that. But living through what I've lived through, race has never been an issue. I've never run into it as far as, you know, me ever thinking twice about someone's color.
Well, thanks to the Dalai Lama, it is now. Yes, sirree. He brought it all back to us. And another point was, we had a black member of I was on the Army ROTC drill team. Had a black guy on the drill team. We didn't think about it. He didn't think about it. He was, you know, just as important a member, doing a great job. We were enjoying practices. And one day he quit showing up for practice. I finally ran into him on campus a week or two later. Where have you been here? And he hemmed and hawed about something or other, but turns out that he was being ostracized by his other black students because he was fitting in too well with the white guys.
And I think that that's another thing. We've gotten to the point where you're acting really white. If you're black and you want to participate in traditional cultural things for the United States, if you think differently than the left, then you are automatically, you know.
If you're making good grades, you're acting too white.
That's crazy.
I mean, it is ridiculous.
Well, and all you're doing by doing that is taking away great opportunities from people that probably are willing to work for them, but then are shamed into being less than. Why is that something we want?
How many Ben Carsons have been discouraged?
So many.
Ben fortunately had a great mom and this, you know, when you read Ben Carson's story, it is amazing. His mother made sure that he got his homework done. Made her read. She made him read his reports to her. He didn't find out until later in life that his mother could not read.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I also think that speaks to parents being involved with their kids and wanting better for them.
Exactly.
I think that we see a lack of that as well these days. People.
He was this far away. You grew up in Detroit. He was this far away becoming a gang member. He could have been arrested for killing a guy. He got in a knife fight with another, I think, gang member, as I recall, and he thrust a knife at him, and it hit his metal belt buckle. Might have been the only reason this guy wasn't severely injured or killed. And yet he became the greatest pediatric brain surgeon in the world, separating Siamese twins. In fact, it was a case in which every other neurosurgeon in the world had turned these kids down. And it was a 23-hour operation, but got the job done. And they are living healthy lives separate, apart as two individuals now. Incredible.
And he's an incredible human being.
Without a doubt.
Regardless of skin color, right?
If they're rolling me into the operating room, I'm not caring. And the thing that bothers me more than anything else is that because of this so-called balance of culture that we have to have, I fear that one day that somebody might roll you into the operating room and they don't start the operation, even though you might desperately need it. Might be a traumatic situation because the Hispanic anesthetist is not on duty right now. We'll have to use a white person. Well, we can't do that because it wouldn't be a proper balance of the medical staff. That's what they're doing with movies now. If you make a motion picture, Hollywood demands, what's the crew look like? Well, who cares what the crew looks like? If you're not employing 30% of this and 20% of that, then you can't make your movie, or at least we're not going to. You can make the movie, we're not going to distribute it.
I think we've seen that most of the movies in Hollywood right now are garbage. Mm-hmm. So they've done a really great job of tanking that industry because guess what? People don't want to watch that. That's why you see Disney stock going down. It's the worst performing stock on the stock market.
Yep.
And it's because people don't want that stuff in their lives. We get enough of it with the news, interactions with people. We want to enjoy something, and it makes it so you can't.
Well,
You
the
just
new
cannot
Buzz,
enjoy it.
Yeah, the new Buzz Lightyear movie or something has something. There's a transsexual scene of some sort.
The new Marvel movie is the same way.
But when they tried to, and of course, they want the Chinese market, and the Chinese say, "You're taking that scene out." And do you think they stand up for what they think is right? Anything you guys want, we'll take that out. We try to take it out here, and you're
Homophobic, racist,
exactly.
whatever they can throw at you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, though. The words used to have meaning. Those words don't mean anything to me because they just throw them at you, and they don't. I mean, that's not representative of most of the people that they call that. So it's.
And how this is going into our culture, when we were talking earlier about the electric vehicles, they say this is how we've got a lot of big companies that want to come to Savannah in this market, Amazon, UPS, and others. And the requirements are from the board of directors that unless at least 30% of the vehicles that are or the energy that is used doesn't come from renewable sources, they can't build a plant. They can't build their facility.
But if they start really doing things like that, Georgia's going to look like California. Rolling blackouts in the summer. And I don't know about you, but going without air conditioning in the South is treacherous. I mean, yes, we've gotten used to being comfortable. They used to do it all the time, but I mean, when you're used to air conditioning, it makes it super rough, and especially like the dead of summer down here is.
My mother asked that question on numerous occasions because she grew up in the 20s and 30s, and even into the 40s. And she said, when she said, I don't know how we live without air conditioning. And most of the cars when I was growing up weren't air conditioned. They didn't come automatically with air conditioning. That was an added expense, or that wasn't an option at all. There were companies that actually made car air conditioners that you retrofit the car for car air conditioners. My stepfather had one of the first air conditioned cars that I was ever in. A company called Novi. And brother, I tell you, and the way this thing was designed, had two big tubes that came out of the back of from the trunk. The air conditioning design was put in the trunk, and the compressor, and they had these two big tubes that came up through the back of the rear seat, and when you turn that sucker on, you could hang meat in that car in seconds. It was unbelievable how efficient these things were.
How loud were they?
They weren't loud.
No?
Weren't loud at all.
Wow.
You could turn just like you turn it up high, and you get that wind noise. But for the most part, kept it on low or whatever. In fact, the original car air conditioners, the first one I think friends of ours had across the street had an Oldsmobile that was air conditioned. Actually had vents in the ceiling.
Oh.
And so the car got cool like that, as opposed to having it on the dashboard and the poor people in the back have to wait 15 minutes for it to cool down. So but that's a lot more expensive to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, and innovation, right? Innovation happened, and now we're all very comfortable in all of our vehicles with air conditioning.
Yep. Meanwhile, according to the left-stream media and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, you should be happy the Internal Revenue Service is hiring 87,000 more people.
Can't wait to
You're
hear all about that.
An idiot if you think that they're coming after you. An idiot.
Can't wait to hear all about that when we come back.
Let's get real, America.
Hi, this is Herschel Walker. I want to endorse Bruce Thompson as our new labor commissioner because he's going to do the best job you've ever seen for the great state of Georgia.
Listen, I'm standing here with the great Herschel Walker. We all know what's happened in our U.S. Senate, and it's time for a change. And I 100% endorse Herschel Walker to represent Georgia and the United States as we take back our country for the people of Georgia and for the United States.
God bless. Hi, this is Herschel Walker. I want to endorse.
People are hurting. People are tired. People have seen what they worked their entire lives to build turned upside down at a moment's notice. They're wondering when things will get back to normal, and at the same time not knowing what normal even means anymore. At my heart, I am and always will be a pastor.
America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness.
That means going to work for my congregation. It means understanding the challenges you face and then doing my best to make a difference. Every day I carry your concerns with me. That's why I've worked so hard to protect and create jobs. That's why I know we must make healthcare more affordable. That's why I'm cracking down on the corporations who are raising prices out of control. What I want the people of Georgia to know is that I see you. I hear you. I am you. I understand the work that I was sent to the Senate to do. That's what I intend to keep doing for Georgia.
Well, it's time to get real, America, and we are going to be talking about why why we should not be upset about the IRS hiring more people. I mean, it's really to serve the people, right, Bill?
You should be having a party.
Celebrations, really. Barbecues are in order. Maybe another federal holiday.
And invite an IRS agent over because there's going to be one nearby.
That's exciting.
Yes, sirree. Members of the left-leaning media and the Democrats, and I repeat myself, NBC, the National Barak Channel, the Arab Broadcasting Company, the Communist Broadcast System, BSNBC, and the Communist News Network, all joining forces and leading Democrats mocking us for being upset over 87,000 IRS agents being hired. In fact, Democrats have repeatedly insisted that the Inflation Reduction Act, boy, that's that's almost like, I don't know, the Obamacare. It was going to, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
If you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
I do remember that. Mm-hmm. All the lies, the spin.
They've insisted that it's only going to affect those making over $400,000. Now, there are approximately 1,000 billionaires in America. If we hire 87,000 IRS agents to look after those folks, in other words, it's about 105 agents a person. It's so they're going to be looking over their shoulder. But according to Fox Business, recently confirmed that Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, had informed lawmakers and taxpayers that those under the threshold would still account for around $20 billion in revenue in the legislation. And both CNN and messed up NBC admitted in on-air reports that an increase in the amount of taxes collected would allow the Internal Revenue Service to bolster its workforce. Now, nonetheless, Democrats and also prominent members of the media have respectively called concerns about this preposterous and represented MAGA media's hatred of government. Yeah. Members of the leadership said the IRS could bully the middle class, and they say that's nonsense. On MSNBC's 11th Hour, host Stephanie Ruhle smirked as she asked Representative Katie Porter, a Democrat from California, if she would like to fact-check the claim that Republicans that said the bill would have an army of IRS agents descending on less wealthy Americans. She said, "What a load of malarkey."
Oh, they love that word on the left.
Don't they, though? Yes, sirree. for claiming constituents complain about the lack. She says her constituents complain about the lack of response they're getting from the Internal Revenue Service. Said the number one agency in America people would like to have more agents is the Internal Revenue Service, because they'll be able to answer more questions. They'll be able to answer your phone. You won't be on hold but 3 days instead of 4.
Well, I think the problem with this whole thing is, number one, why are we letting someone that is pro this fact check it? Because we know that they are lying.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, there was a Republican who submitted an addendum to this bill, stating anyone under $400,000 would not be impacted, and every Democrat voted against it. So they're lying, and I mean it is going to impact all of us. Mm-hmm. And I mean they're not going after billionaires, because billionaires can fight this stuff.
Or even multimillionaires, those the lesser ones.
Yes.
And who have an army of lawyers and accountants. So that we're not going to go after those people. We're going to go after you, because you don't have them.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, they're hiring all these people. If you really think that they're going to start answering the phone, I mean, get real, America. It's not happening. They are definitely going to be weaponizing this agency against us. They're going to be taking more of our money. I will tell you, when you deal with the IRS, it's impossible. If you're looking to get money back, it's very difficult to get a hold of them. But I'll tell you what, if they're looking for your money, they will find you. They, and you will pay them. And
you have, people like F. Chuck Todd, good old F, was saying that, well, all you have to do, if you're worried about this, all you have to do is don't cheat on your taxes. That's all you have to worry about.
Okay, can I just say that I hate these people? They're terrible. They're terrible. They're telling us lies. They're all in it together. And yeah, Chuck Todd, he probably won't get audited because he's got some friends, right? But the rest of us, the others, we are definitely going to be audited. They're going to be taking more money, and we're not going to have any way to fight against this.
And Todd and others get paid enormous sums of money. They're millionaires. And on 2 different occasions, Representative Jim Hines, a Democrat from Connecticut, through Coldwater on concerns bolstering the IRS. In one segment, Hines suggested Republican opposition to the bill because they want it easier for people to cheat on their taxes. Yeah, that's exactly what people do. They want to be able to cheat on their taxes. Now, we want a simpler tax code. They might want to try that instead of having a 6,000-page mess that we have now that the late great Herman Cain used to talk to us about. Do you know he was never audited in his entire career? And when he came up from again, somebody who came up from black guy who came up from poverty and became the CEO of a company that his dad used to be a janitor. He got up and got in Bill Claxton's face when he was president, when Clinton made these ridiculous remarks about, well, all you have to do, just because we're raising taxes on you, Herman, we don't have to worry. All you have to do is raise the price of your pizza. And he got up and said, Mr. President, it doesn't work that way. And he tried to explain to him, for the next 3 years, he'd never been audited before, but for the next 3 years after getting in Clinton's face, he was audited. Of course, they didn't find anything because he hadn't cheated on his taxes, but he still had to spend a lot of his time, the company's time, and Godfather's Pizza's time on answering all these questions from America's Gestapo. And the worst part is, I saw that somebody sent a meme to me yesterday, said, don't tell me I don't need an AR-15 when you can't explain to me why the IRS needs one. Why are we getting them armed with automatic weapons? And they just bought $750,000 worth of ammunition. So what is that for? So
I did hear, so I'm going to get real America right here, but they do have a criminal part of the IRS where they go after people for fraud, like someone like Al Capone or people like that. So, I mean, and they're saying that they're not arming all of them, but I will say we have questions. We have a lot of questions about this, and I do think that, it's very concerning when we have more people working in the IRS than we do protecting our southern border. There is, havoc going on down at the southern border, and putting people that live on the border, bless Texas and Arizona, and I'm going to say California. You guys vote for those people that are not helping you, but you don't deserve to live in a third world country.
Well, this is the point more than anything else, is the fact that not only are these politicians not doing anything about it, you voters need to get to the polls. Quit voting for these people. Vote them out. Because they are the ones, just like in New York, where we're sending all these, the Texas is now sending all these illegal aliens up to New York and other places. Not that the federal government hadn't been doing it for weeks and months, and they didn't say anything about that. But now that the Governor Abbott has sent a few hundred of them in a bus, they got their shorts in a wad, and now they're talking about putting them up in multi-million-dollar hotel rooms.
Well, I'm sure that they're owned by Feinstein's husband, so I'm sure it's fine. And they don't make money off of any of this.
No,
it's really the goodness of their heart.
Nothing is too good for our illegal aliens.
No, definitely not. And here's the thing: I don't blame these people. America's amazing. People want to be here because it is, known as the land of the free. I think we're seeing that our freedoms are being taken away, especially when the government gets to dictate how much money you make. I think that we're not free as a country, but people want to be here. And I don't blame them for coming. I blame the government for allowing it to happen and for encouraging the behavior.
This is the same government that tells us how terrible this place is?
I know, it's amazing.
Why are so many people trying to get in here if it's such a terrible place?
You know what? That would take some honesty and some common sense. And I don't think that the government's willing to admit any of that. And that's why we should not be electing people that are politicians. I think that we need to start electing. I would rather elect plumbers, electricians. I want everyday people in these seats. I don't want attorneys in these seats anymore. I think that they've done a lot of damage.
We had one of the best businessmen in the history of the world as our president for 4 years, and they did everything they could to get him out because he was, pulling the Band-Aid off the wound. And everybody keeps saying about how they don't want a politician, and they keep voting for him. Joe Biden never had a job in his life. He's been up there. He's been in politics. Been in Washington for 50 years, proposing no legislation that's meant a damn thing.
He's never said anything intelligent in his entire life. I mean, if you even go back
it's even getting worse.
I know. Well, now he doesn't even know where he is, or who he is, or if he's the vice president or a senator. He's not really sure. Mm-hmm. He's really confused these days. But I do think that we do need more people to step up that are normal citizens that just want to do the right thing. And I think it's really hard to want to be in government when you see how bad the media is, and it puts your family at risk. It puts you at risk. And it didn't used to be that way. And now it's just, politics is terrible.
Grew up in an era where you wanted to trust your government. You appreciated that they were here to look after your best interest, and they were working for you, not against you, and not for themselves. Now that probably was not the case, but that was the impression that you got, and it certainly wasn't oppressive. This was a free country when I was a kid, for the most part. On the Communist News Network, Senator Richard Blooming Idiot, the Democrat from Connecticut, called the notion preposterous that the more IRS agents would be coming after you. Now, Richard Blumenthal is one of the most despicable people. Why they re-elected this cretin, I have no idea, or electing him in the first place. He was terrible as their attorney general. There was a great phone conversation that Glenn Beck had with him some years ago when he was the AG, and when we had that big depression, that they didn't want to call it that, when the Dalai Lama first got in office, and they hired these people to get into CEOs to save companies that were going under, and they said, they will pay you, they hired him for like $1 a year, but they said you will get, when you get this company recovered, you will get compensated. And so their compensation came from, it was a legal contract. You're going to get so many million dollars or whatever. Once the company recovers, you'll get a percentage of whatever. And some of these and these people were turning these companies around, employing more people, getting people back to work, getting us out of the recession that we were in. And Blumenthal starts going after him for the money. And Glenn Beck gets him on the phone and said, "Mr. Attorney General, what law did these people violate that you're going after their money?" And he said, "Well, the law that we just passed." "What law is it? Quote the law for me." He couldn't quote the law because there wasn't one. He said, Tell me what law they broke by taking this money. Well, they were taking too much money. That was his. They sent buses. What's that big government union that I despise so much? Why anybody in government? Why there's a government union is beyond my God. Anybody that works for the taxpayers shouldn't be members of a union.
No.
But they sent buses to these people's homes, just like what's being done to our Supreme Court justices who are standing up for the Constitution now. They sent busloads of people to these CEOs' houses, terrorizing them, their families, their kids. It was disgusting. And he could not explain why he was trying to take these people's money and telling them to give their money back when this is a legal contract that they signed with. In fact, it wasn't even in Connecticut. I think it was a contract they signed in the state of New York to turn over, that they would turn this company around and you will get this money. It was in the contract, legal document signed by attorneys, maybe even or Democrats, and he's trying to take the money back from them. And Glenn pinned him down, and he could never answer the question. He also decided that he was also a hero in Vietnam, even though he'd never been there. Now that should have gotten him out of office automatically, but they reelected this cretin. So, Richard Blumenthal, you're an idiot.
Well, do you think that the reason these people get elected is because they actually don't understand any of the things that they've accomplished or the things that they have done while they've been in office? I do think that if you're not heavily invested in doing research and, following politics, I think that you don't understand the impact that an attorney general can have in your state. Mm-hmm. And I think you just vote for the incumbent, and your life hasn't been that bad with them, so you just vote for them. You don't really know what they stand for, or you just know that they have a D or an R by their name.
Or if it affects you, you don't go back to the as the vice president loves to say, get to the grassroots.
Oh yes,
of the problem.
I love that. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, get to the grassroots. We're trying to get to the grassroots of the truth here, and to make sure that we try to save America in our little neck of the woods here.
Yeah, and it's an uphill battle, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I think you of all people would know what it's like here in Chatham County. It's pretty rough.
But once again, this has been incrementalism. It has happened over a period of time. You're not going to solve this overnight. And just because you elect a lot of good people, which you should, and you should be educating yourself as to who is doing what and who you need to vote for. But don't think that they're going to be able to turn it around on a dime. It's not going to happen, but we got to start someplace.
Well, do you think that people actually understand what a county commissioner does?
No.
Or what role they play, or how it can impact their life?
Stop any 10 people on the street and ask them who their county commissioner is, and I promise you will get 10 blank stares.
Okay, we will be doing that in the future. I would love to see what people have to say about that, and if they know what that person does, or the county manager, or even what the mayor does. I think people don't even know what his job duties are.
We're getting ready to dismiss a county manager here in Chatham County, and we don't know why. Nor does he.
And I mean, that's the thing. He's on a paid suspension. So suspension means that they're assuming that he did something wrong. And now they're negotiating his severance. And if he did something wrong, why are we giving him severance pay? And why do we not know as the public what's going on? And
why doesn't he know what's going on, for that matter? I mean, according to him, he doesn't know why he's being suspended. And they're suspending him with pay.
See, it just doesn't add up to me, Bill. If he had done something wrong, why would they be paying him? So there must be some sort of investigation. I mean, quote unquote.
They won't tell us what it is.
Yes. And I think that that's the problem with government, too, is they operate behind closed doors. And we, the people, are paying all of these salaries. Why do we not get to know what is happening? What damage will it do for them to tell us why they're investigating him?
Yeah, just like we don't know what's in that warrant that when they raided the president's home a week ago. They make up some excuse like, well, it would compromise the investigation if we let this out.
Well, and we know that key piece of information is really what caused all of the Russiagate stuff and the hoax that was behind that. And so the fact that that's the document that they won't release is very suspicious to me. And I think that, I mean, they are going after him with a vengeance. And it's like, if you had anything on him, I mean, we're six years into this. Them investigating him, spying on him, doing all of the shenanigans. You would think they would have something that they would be able to get him on. And now, are they just trying to
make up stuff?
Yep. That's
all of
what
a sudden
I think.
they're worried about nuclear codes or something. He might have some top nuclear secrets. What nuclear secrets could he possibly have? He's been out of office for almost 18 months.
Well, not only that, I heard that they confiscated, things that they shouldn't have access to, like client attorney privilege documents.
His passport.
Yes.
They returned that. Thank you very much.
Oh, it was an
Parts ago.
accident. It was an accident. I don't know how it got in that box. It just got there.
They said this warrant was so open-ended that they could have confiscated anything. A lot of Melania's clothing, I guess, if these guys wanted to do any cross-dressing.
Or maybe gift it to their wives. I don't know what these people are doing, but they did I did see a report that they took more than they were allowed to take in the search. I also know that the judge that was involved in signing the warrant in Florida, number one, he represented Epstein's people. So I mean, he's a really great person, just wonderful. And he also recused himself from a case in 2018 against Trump and Hillary because he had a conflict of interest because he is so anti-Trump. So how was he allowed to sign this warrant?
And a contributor to Hillary.
Yeah. How is that allowed? And at this point, it's like, is the warrant going to be null and void if we get to that process because he had a conflict of interest and never should have been involved in the first place?
But the damage is done.
I mean, is there really damage? Now I'm hearing, instead of like ultra MAGA, I'm hearing now there's like nuclear MAGA, which is the play on him having the nuclear codes. So, and I heard that the fundraising since that raid has been incredible for President Trump. That the support is gaining. People are getting more upset, and it's also a very scary place to be because we don't know what the outcome of this is going to be or how far are they willing to go, and that's what I'm concerned about is how far will they push this president? What are they going to try and get him on? And we'll never know if it's real or not because no one trusts the government.
And as Buck Sexton has said on the show with Buck Sexton and Clay Travis on their radio program, Buck was retired. He was a member of the New York City Police Department. He was also a member of the CIA for several years. He said when a president leaves office, when they're leaving the White House, they don't do their own packing. They don't pack up all of this stuff. That's packed up for them by another, actually an agency that actually does this, that does moving for government officials. All this is packed up into boxes. President Trump has no idea in many cases what all is in those boxes. And when they came to him 2 months ago, full cooperation, they had been fully cooperating, said anything you want. And they said, well, we think one of these, there might be something really special in this, so I want you to padlock this door. They padlocked the door. Then they made great capital of the fact last week that there was a room that was padlocked, and they had to break that open. Well, they told them to padlock it.
Well, and I also think that it's interesting that this all came about from the White House archives. That's where this all stemmed from. Like, it seems very ridiculous to me. Like,
Well,
you guys are worried about records, and now we have the
National
FBI.
Archives.
Yeah.
The National Archives. Yeah. Well, who decides what's going in there? And the president has a right to declassify anything he wants to. So this stuff could have been automatically declassified. And what kind of nuclear information could he have that would be either outdated or irrelevant at this point? Nuclear codes change on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that they were looking for other things. I don't think that that's what it was. I think they were looking for anything they could to try and get him on something so he cannot run in 2024.
This was simply a fishing expedition.
Right,
No
but
other reason, and something like Brittany said is something that they could use as fodder for their ad campaign. Whoever's going to run against him, I don't think it's going to be Joe Biden.
I mean, their bench is not very deep. I don't know who they're going to get. I mean, we got Gavin Newsom and AOC. I mean, I don't know, but also
Pete Bootylicious.
Well, but also they can't abandon Kamala, or else what is that going to look like? Abandoning a black female? I don't know. Unless she pulls her hat out of the ring herself, I don't really think they can do that. They've really painted themselves into a corner.
The woman, she is a woman. She identifies herself as
In a blue suit, sitting at the
in a
head of
blue
the
suit.
table.
Yes, she was the first one to pull out of the 2020 presidential race to begin with. Fired her, the whole staff. All these people looked around and said, "What do you mean we don't have jobs now?" She was the first one to pull it because she was getting less than 1% support.
But at least at that time, you could, like, she actually was saying stuff. Now it's like, I don't know what she's even talking about. She talks in a circular fashion and in a very obvious way, I guess. I mean,
And
she
have
does
you
talk
no-
about blue suits and herself being a female, so I guess that counts for
And
something.
have you noticed how they've made up these straw dogs? For example, they're saying that they're all of a sudden now all law enforcement is being threatened. That these MAGA people are now coming after the FBI because of this, and law enforcement is being threatened. And she said in a press conference on her plane yesterday that she wouldn't stand for it. That law enforcement's being threatened. Is this the same woman who was financing getting people out of jail, financing and telling people what a wonderful job Antifa and Black Lives Matter were doing in the riots of the summer of 2020, and killing police officers and injuring police officers? Is this the same woman when she set up and funded a guy who got out of jail and then was then murdered somebody? So the blood's on her hands. This is the same woman who said, "Well, no, law enforcement should not be threatened." Oh, please.
Well, I think it only applies if it's their law enforcement that's doing what they want them to do. I think that's when they care about respecting the office, you know. But I mean, unfortunately, they have weaponized so many departments against the American people that people don't trust the institutions anymore. I think Kamala Harris's approval rating is well below Joe Biden's, which is, I mean, he's basically a
Which
dead
is a
person,
feat.
so I'm not really sure how that happens.
And if she's such a wonderful person, how come she's losing so many staff? Every time we turn around, she's losing another staff member that don't want to work with her anymore because she's such a witch. In other words, that rhyme with that as well.
I mean, would you want to work for Kamala Harris? Like,
Hell,
oh
good
my
Lord, no.
goodness, you probably
There
would
ain't
be.
enough money.
Well, I'm just like, I couldn't work for someone dumber than me. I'm just like, no, I don't think that you can be in charge of me, lady. It's not happening. But yet you were second in command, which is also very scary.
Yeah, heartbeat away. If I were Joe Biden, I'd get a taste tester.
Maybe that's why he's on vacation so much. He's trying to get away from her.
It could be.
Who knows?
I hope he enjoyed Kiowa Island. Hope Hunter did too.
Oh, I hope he got a lot of rest.
While we're rating the president, and for that little weasel Merrick Garland, for getting up and saying that we apply the law all the way across the board. Oh, really? When are we going to send in FBI SWAT team to Chappaquiddick? No, Chappaquiddick. That was another case against the Democrats with Ted Kennedy. But what's the place up in New York where they live? Going and sending a SWAT team up to her mansion there in New York. Have we seen a SWAT team come in on Hunter Biden's place?
Or the Clintons. I mean, when I know that they say this is whataboutism, but when Hillary Clinton had those emails on a server, should have been classified. She was the Secretary of State. She did not have the capability to decide what was classified and what wasn't. But yet, the FBI went in. They were very nice about it. They questioned her. She had no ill intent, so case solved. We're going to back out now.
Even the corrupt James Comey, when he was FBI director, said that Secretary of State, when she was using her email, she was using her private phone with these documents, said that our enemies had access to them when she was in these territories where she was going on as unfortunately when she was Secretary of State.
But she didn't do it on purpose, so it doesn't count.
And all of this was subpoenaed. She destroyed 30,000 emails and then tried to tell us it was mostly pictures of Chelsea's wedding and yoga pictures. I'd love to have seen those. But then she takes it was the first time we'd heard about this program called BleachBit that would destroy information on a computer or on a hard drive, and then she took a sledgehammer to several of them. While we did have the expression of lock her up, Donald Trump never sent the FBI into their place up in New York with the SWAT team at 5:30 in the morning notifying CNN that they were coming.
You want to know why, though? It's because he knew it was divisive, and he shouldn't do it. It was not the right thing to do, even though she deserved it. It would have
Bigger
divided.
fish to fry.
Yeah, it would have divided the country even more, and we didn't need that. I mean, the mainstream media has done a great job of that. I think they continue to do a great job of that. I'm hoping people are shutting off the mainstream media, but I know there's still a lot of people watching it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And so we're here in our little neck of the woods trying to save America and telling you to get real.
And after this, we'll have a good news story. We'll be back.
People are hurting. People are tired. People have seen what they worked their entire lives to build turned upside down at a moment's notice. They're wondering when things will get back to normal, and at the same time not knowing what normal even means anymore. At my heart, I am and always will be a pastor.
America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness.
That means going to work for my congregation. It means understanding the challenges you face and then doing my best to make a difference. Every day I carry your concerns with me. That's why I've worked so hard to protect and create jobs. That's why I know we must make healthcare more affordable. That's why I'm cracking down on the corporations who are raising prices out of control. What I want the people of Georgia to know is that I see you. I hear you. I am you. I understand the work that I was sent to the Senate to do. That's what I intend to keep doing for Georgia.
I need to get your monitor right over
Yes.
your camera so you
Yes.
can look at that right
Yes.
through the TV.
Welcome back to Get Real America. We actually have some good news for conservatives and freedom-loving Americans.
Yay.
I know, it doesn't happen very often. But there is a new app that was created called Public Square, and it allows you to put your business on this website, and you are able to, and this is just committing to your customers that you don't believe in mandates, whether that's mask or vaccine mandates, so you don't hold your employees to that. You will not require your customers to do that. You believe in freedom. And I think that this is a great way for conservatives to really put their money where their beliefs are.
Fantastic. You do have a voice, and you need to exercise it, because nothing's going to get done if you don't get to the polls and vote. And you can cut off your nose to spite your face and say, I'm going to teach these people a lesson by not voting for them, and look what happens.
Exactly. And I think supporting companies that believe in the same values, I think that that's how we win. I think quit supporting people that don't support you.
In fact, my wife and I have a great financial investor, and we've lost some money over the last few months.
No way.
I know. I know it's hard to believe.
I know.
But,
the economy's great right now. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, I know, and zero inflation. Mm-hmm. But he has done exactly what we've asked him to do. He's looked into companies that are going by what we believe in American values, and not by ones who want to make sure that there are so many people on the board of directors that are people of color, so many people that are transgender, so many people that are this, so many people that are that. They're looking for people who are qualified to do the job. If they're all white, fine. If they're all black, fine. If they're all transgenders, fine. Can they do the job? That's what we're asking them to do. And but the portfolio still looks pretty darn good.
I love that. And I also think that it's good for people to invest in companies that are America first. Mm-hmm. They make stuff in America. And I think that helps with the crisis that we're seeing of getting goods from China. And we become so used to getting cheaper goods from China, and we're okay with that. But I think the impact of that has been, they're not held to the same requirements as we are in the U.S. for mm-hmm. safety reasons. We're seeing a lot of, things happening within our culture where, men, their testosterone levels are I think that they're 50% lower in the last 20 years mm-hmm. than they used to be. And that's because of plastics. It's because what's in our food. I mean, we do not protect ourselves in this country because we buy from China, we buy from all these other countries that are not held to strict guidelines.
When
So
this COVID thing first hit, I was stunned, and so were a lot of other people, to find out that most of our medicine was made in China.
do you trust that?
No.
Do you think they're putting something that may be nefarious in their products?
Well, that didn't occur to me. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. If you think that's a good idea, I can remember a few years ago when we were building one of our new airplanes, and they wanted to. I remember getting a Japanese company to make the radios,
Okay.
the communication stuff in there, and a lot of people said, no. We can sell these things to the Japanese if we want to, but everything that goes in this plane should be made in America. There was even a big stink about, speaking of the Chinese, for a while we were having a lot of our military uniforms, boots and everything made in China, and there was a big stink about that. We finally got over that.
I didn't think that was allowed. I thought
But
everything militarily had to be made in the U.S.
Well, it does now, but before we were getting, I think, boots from China. I think some of the hats or caps and all were made in China. It was just pathetic, and yeah, they can make it cheaper, but at the same time, it's also slave labor in many cases, and it's made with plants that are powered by coal-burning power plants.
No way.
So all the environmentalists that say all they want, all these, they want the cheap stuff from China, but that has to be manufactured with electricity that is generated somehow. It doesn't just magically fall down from the sky, believe it or not.
Well, I think that's the problem with the fuel too. We would rather buy from the Saudis than have our own oil. Like, that makes no sense to me.
We're sitting on the richest oil and energy reserves in the world. Ours are a lot cleaner, a lot better, and we have a lot more of it.
And it's renewable. They told us for years it wasn't renewable, and it's renewable.
It is renewable. It is something they're not fossil fuel. We couldn't have had that many dinosaurs. And it is something that is produced by the earth, was given to us by God. You can't get the joules out of a gallon of gasoline. You can't get the same amount of joules by putting corn in it and getting as ethanol than you can just pure gasoline. And it's not very good for your engine either. But this is something that is manufactured by the earth. It is a natural, it's organic. And
It is
cleaner,
organic.
and ours is cleaner than anybody's, so we don't have as much refining to do. We don't have to pay money to have it shipped here, which uses more carbon energy to get it shipped here on tankers. And think of how much that carbon footprint goes up when those things burn 2,000 gallons an hour of diesel fuel.
And we wouldn't be supporting dictatorships. That would be a good thing, I think.
Yeah, countries that are against us and also might support terrorists buying ammunition and bullets to kill our soldiers.
Seems like a good thing.
Yeah, it is one of the worst circular firing squads I've ever seen in my life, and how pathetic it is that we are not going after our own energy, and how much that could mean to our economy. Just that alone would take care of the inflation problem for the most part, bring down the price of gas for the most part. And when you're seeing, like I said, I saw this statistic. I can't even get my mind around this number, but the amount of natural gas that is under America, something in the range, it's something like, I don't remember how many trillion cubic meters of gas, natural gas that we have, but it would last at today's consumption level over 500 years. And it can be liquefied. There was a guy who called in from Utah. You're familiar with the Utah people.
Yes.
He was a salesman. He'd modified his car to run on natural gas. It cost him $7.50 to fill up, and it lasted longer than a regular tank of gas, and it was a lot cleaner burning. We could be running just about all of our vehicles now on this liquefied natural gas, and the prices would go down enormously. It would be a lot cleaner for the environment, and it would help employ people. When they cut out this idiot cut out the Keystone Pipeline, he hadn't been in office 15 minutes when that was taken care of. People who were $97,000 a year jobs. I mean, these are well-paying jobs. And think of all the residuals, the domino effect it had on other businesses that relied on that pipeline. Restaurant, one of the waitresses they had on the next couple of days later from one of the restaurants said, that morning we were packed for breakfast, that night for dinner it was empty.
It's amazing how policy can really change people's lives and they don't even realize it until it happens to them. But I also think innovation is where we get better and we continue to have cleaner fuel, because I do think that fossil fuels are still a great resource for us.
Without a doubt.
And I think that
we will for years to come.
Well, but if you don't allow for innovation and you continue to have all of these restrictions that they have to go by, it really enables people from being able to create something really great and that continues to get better. And people don't account for that when they say, climate change is going to kill all of us. Like, it's very scary. It's an emergency.
Oh, by the way, they've been telling us that for over 100 years.
Yeah, we should have already been dead, right?
Yeah. Al Gore, when he came out with his stupid book, Inconvenient Truth. By the way, there's not a single footnote in that book.
So it's an opinion book.
Yeah. He said, within 5 years, our children will not know what snow is.
Oh my gosh. And you people still listen to these people. How?
Ted Danson told us that the oceans were going to be taking over, and within 10 years, the seas would climb up. We'd have oceanfront property in Wyoming.
Oh.
But that hasn't happened so far.
A beach house would be cheaper.
It sure would.
Just saying.
But this is because once upon a time, where we are here in Georgia was underwater. In fact, they find shark teeth in Macon, which is mid-state. So what happened? The seas receded. Climate change. The Great Lakes were formed by glaciers along. What happened there? Climate change. And now I just watched a 60 Minutes documentary this past weekend on all the gloom and doom about the Colorado River drying up.
So I can't believe you still watch 60 Minutes.
I want to see what the opposition. You gotta keep your enemies closer than your friends.
Ask more questions when you watch 60 Minutes. I'm just saying.
So because of climate change, the Colorado River is receding, and we're not going to have enough water to grow the crops. California is allowed to have, however, all the water that they want, but they're restricting it in Arizona and Utah.
Yes, well, so I am from Utah. For those of you that don't know, my parents, they actually, grew crops and things like that. And last year there just wasn't enough water for them to actually, have as many cuts in the fields as they normally have, which is a huge issue. But the reason it's a huge issue is because they don't address water there, and they're allowing all these people to build homes, but there's no water. So
yeah, they showed this housing boom that was going on around here, and they're going to furnish them with what?
Exactly, and
they're going to power them with what?
Well, and the people that have lived there for decades are the ones that suffer, and and it's not right. And I think people in government are so greedy that they just see money, and so they approve all of these housing developments and all of these things that really the resources are not there to support them, and we need to worry about that first and then look at approving things. And they haven't come up with a solution for that.
And then they tell us about the dying species because their habitat is being taken over.
Yeah, but it's so interesting the way, like, how circular everything is. It's like, well, you guys are making the decisions that create this, and then you want to yell about climate change. It's crazy.
And we've been warned about that. I can show you an article from Newsweek magazine from 1978 called Our Cooling Planet.
Oh.
And that within 20 or 30 years, it's going to be so cold we won't be able to grow anything, and we're going to be dead. 1978. You do the math.
I feel like people making climate predictions are not very good at it.
And whenever there's a cycle like this, because climate change started the day after God invented the place,
Oh, right.
they will come up with an article of it. You can look at the New York Times, the paper of record, the old gray lady, from the 1920s about global warming. 20 years later, they had one about global cooling. 20 years later, it was global warming again. It was rolling. So they couldn't figure out that was embarrassing to them. So then it was climate change. Once upon a time, the South Pole was the tropics. We have all the geological proof we need of that. They found plants. They found plants in the Mediterranean, in the bed of the Mediterranean Sea. Plants that could only grow in warm sunshine, indicating that once upon a time the Mediterranean Sea was a desert.
Well, we hear about the Ice Age too, right? It's just like people don't. We need to teach people things in school. That is the moral of the story. I think that we have gotten away from that, and so people just believe all of this nonsense instead of what's actually true.
I think it was either Norway or Sweden a few years ago, when they had a warming spell. They found mines that had been covered by snow and ice for over 400 years.
Wow.
So about 400 or 500 years ago, it was much warmer in Sweden because they were actually mining stuff. They found these mines that had been covered over by global cooling. So the planet continues to change. It's going to change. We need to go along and figure out how we're going to deal with it and not make things worse, because environmentalists do. And when we come up with these windmills that are killing birds, that are killing bats, a problem enough of growing crops as it is. If the farmers also have to fight all the insects that are going to be destroying them because we're killing all the bats that take care of most of can control the insect population, or the birds and the bees, it even makes it worse. You better get ready to start. There was an old joke we had once upon a time about Fidel Castro going to his people in Cuba and saying, "I got good news and bad news. The bad news is that we've had a total crop failure. There's absolutely nothing to eat except horse manure. The good news is there's plenty of it." And that's what we get from our government.
You're exactly right. And I think, it's like, how did they decide the hierarchy of environmentalists? Because they care. I know someone that builds high voltage power lines, and they're shut down for a bird's nest being created on the path, right? Mm-hmm. So they're shut down. They have to wait. It's crazy. But then they're willing to put up this renewable energy, these windmills, and the amount of birds it kills. They don't birds. So how does the hierarchy actually work? What they do does not make any sense when people aren't. Number one, I don't think people talk to enough people that do other jobs and kind of figure out what happens in other industries, because if you did, you would understand that what they're putting forward doesn't make any sense.
Getting the government to reverse course is a lesson in futility, because the same people who were arguing, the same environmentalists that were arguing for this ethanol gasoline, realized within a year or two how bad it was. You weren't getting as much for your gallon. It was more polluting. It was damaging engines because it's a water-based type thing, and water is not good for your engine. And even in marine engines and others, they tell you can't use this stuff. Even on things like home generators or lawnmowers or any small appliance of that nature, don't use ethanol-based gasoline. Use the pure stuff. And they went back to Congress and said, "This was wrong. You need to rescind this. We need to get rid of ethanol because it's causing problems."
They won't do it. They won't do it.
Just like daylight savings time, we're trying to get rid of that in many cases, or at least get on one side or the other. And they'll go back and say, well, there was a 1972 study that said daylight savings time saved energy. Well, 10 studies have come out since then saying that it doesn't. It consumes more energy. because if people are home earlier, they're turning down the air conditioner more when it's still hotter during the day, and so on and so forth, the domino effect that comes along with that. And they said, but that 72 study said that it did. So we're going by that one, even though 10 other studies have come by. I thought we went by science.
Well, that's the thing. Everything is always evolving. So, I mean, we need to continue to have progression. And it's funny because they're called progressive on the left, but they are not at all. And they don't believe in allowing people to have innovation or for things to change, right?
Exactly.
It's whatever. Unfortunately, they believe in the narrative more than they believe in the truth, which we have seen and we've all been victim to, which is really fun for everyone. And I don't know, just how much longer can we continue to elect these people that continue to do nothing? And I wonder, does the DNC and the RNC, do they meet with the candidates and say, okay, are you willing to do stuff? Because if you are, you're not going to fit in here.
I'm sure they do. The Democrats are excellent at that, of taking people to the woodshed or circling the wagons around somebody. The Republicans will say some guy steps out of line, and they say, well, they've got to go. And the Democrats say, you're darn right they do. You need to stand up. You need to clean up your act. Yes, sirree.
Yeah.
But if this stuff worked, private enterprise would take over. If solar panels were the answer, they would be manufactured here. We tried that with Solyndra, and it was a disaster. And your tax dollars at work paid billions that went right down the drain. And if windmills were efficient, then private enterprise would be taking care of it. It wouldn't need subsidies. If electric cars were the answer, it wouldn't need subsidies. You could buy one of those for $20,000 or $30,000 like you can a real car. A friend of mine who is a member of runs a dealership here, a Nissan dealership, said he took me out and he showed me their electric charging station. They had to buy one. It was required by Nissan for them to buy it, but Nissan didn't pay for it. The dealership had to pay for it themselves.
Wow.
So they had to spend $60,000 of their own money to put in this electric charging station. And in the 12 years that he has worked there, he said they've sold 3 electric cars.
Well, it's the lies they tell us, right?
So, by the way, but if you have an electric car and you need your car changed, you can run by Granger Nissan and get it taken care of.
They'd be happy to help you. It sounds like they have plenty of room for you there.
But once again, if we have all these electric cars, where is the electricity coming from? It's pathetic that the things that we're having to that they're shoving down your throat that are not working.
Well, not only that, why is the government involved in all of this research? Like, why do we fund things in the government to do research? Because private companies can do it better. They're more efficient at it, and they can determine if it's worth it or not, if there's a market for it or not, instead of allowing the government to get involved. Like, I don't understand why we pay to research, frogs and I don't even know where. Like, why are we researching that? Is there value in that? What are we doing here?
But if there's value in that research, then the private sector can take care of it.
Well, or the universities.
How do you think we got radar or sonar? By studying bats and porpoises.
Well, I mean, we have plenty of research centers in universities. I mean, not that I'm promoting universities because I think that they're very woke and they don't believe in real science anymore, but we have plenty of research opportunities outside the government. Why are we, and we also subsidize those researches in colleges. So why are we paying the government to do additional research on this stuff? So a loaded question.
I think it's important for research to be done on our college campuses. I think this is part of a teaching process that goes on. But once again, privately funded, and tuition should be taking care of that. Where's all that money going? Instead of, I don't know how many people we have on the payroll at the University of Georgia for diversity purposes. You have a director of diversity that has, I think, at least a 6-figure salary. Hell, it may be 7. And what are they doing? They want diversity of color, but they never want diversity of thought.
It's indoctrination, unfortunately.
It
I think
is.
that that's basically what it boils down to on a lot of these college campuses.
I'm
Which
not sure if public education is beyond fixing.
I'm all about getting rid of the education department, if I'm being honest.
Department of Education, Department of Energy, so far developed by, and both of those came to us from the peanut farmer. And Department of Energy so far, when it was designed, I think it was born in 1979, so far has not generated a single watt. What's it for?
To pay people to do nothing. Shenanigans. I also think, so if we got rid of some of we are in a lot of debt as a country. I'm sure everyone is aware of that, and they continue putting us in more debt. But if we got rid of some of these departments, do you think that, and we bring back fossil fuel, being able to pump our own oil, we can sell it to other countries, make money that way, do you think that we could start to solve some of the debt that we're in?
Yeah, considerably. Going back to the fuel situation, not only becoming energy independent here, but we could be selling it and supplying our friends. Look at how Russia is now holding hostage all of these countries over there that suddenly had to depend on Russian oil. So it was important for us to shut down our pipeline, but President Biden has said it was okay for Rootin' Tootin' Putin to restore his pipeline.
And they're having the best economy ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we did a really good job.
They're selling oil to China. They're selling it to India. They're selling it to Germany, and Germany. And President Trump told Angela Merkel, that incompetent boobette, that she was making a big mistake by shutting down their nuclear power plants and going into some coalition with Russia to get the energy from them. He said, "Do you realize? Do you know what you've done?" And he was he's insulted our allies. He's so dangerous on the world stage. He's going to start another world war.
3 peace deals later, didn't see it happen. So,
Yeah.
Whatever you think about Trump, if you agree with, he has a hard personality. He's a real estate guy, but
what?
He had great policies that really made our
Worked.
lives better.
They worked.
And if he could have gotten rid of the administrative state, I think that we would be in a lot better position right now.
When he told NATO countries, "You're not paying your fair share, for God's sake. You're not doing what you actually promised you were going to do." "Oh, he's so divisive. They don't respect him." Oh, they started paying. A lot of them started paying. Still, some of them don't. But at least they started upping the ante and paying for more of it that they said they said on the contract they were going to in the treaty that we had with them. And now we have more countries that want to join NATO. That we've just admitted Finland and Sweden or Norway, one of the two, that wanted to join. And he was going to start. He was causing all these problems. And how many times, I used to laugh when you heard the Middle East peace process, because I don't know who came up with that stupid remark, because there ain't no such animal. But he was the one that actually got treaties signed. And if we were going to move the embassy in Jerusalem from the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that was going to cause another Middle East crisis.
I thought we've been hearing that since like the 90s.
Without a doubt.
And nothing happened.
No.
Nothing. It's so crazy. I think having Trump in office, I think it made us question everything that they'd ever told us, because they told us he couldn't do it, that there would be a war, that this was going to happen, and it was always the worst case scenario. None of those things came to fruition. He wasn't involved with Russia. That was a whole hoax. The Ukraine stuff, the phone call that he was impeached over. We're seeing that Ukraine situation play out now. And for a country at war, there sure are a lot of celebrities going there and having concerts. There sure are, I think Vogue was over there shooting Zelensky and his wife.
Yeah.
And now they're asking China to give them money to help rebuild Ukraine. And they have not won this war. And it's unreal to me.
They wanted China to come in and rebuild the place.
Yeah, they're asking them for money. Because our money is not, it's not helping that much, so I don't know why we're sending it over there. They're also selling our weapons that we gave them on the black market.
How much more are we going to give them? Why aren't we concerned about our border instead of theirs? And I'm all in favor of trying to help them out or anything else, and I feel sorry for, but...
The Ukrainian people I feel sorry for. I do
Without
not
a
feel
doubt.
bad for the Ukrainian government. I think Zelensky is not a good leader. I don't think he's done the right thing, and I think there's a lot of corruption there, and I feel bad for the Russian people too. Look what we did to them.
Mm-hmm.
We took away some of the payment processors. What did they do? It would be like us being punished for Biden. And we are being punished. I'm not saying we're not, but the American people do not support him. That's clear in the numbers. And, benefit of the doubt, I don't think a lot of the Russians even knew what was going on or what was happening because of what's allowed in that country. And Ukraine, I mean, they're known for being one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So I don't think that we should be, every time I see something about us sending more money every week, it's like, why are we doing this?
I admire Zelensky for the backbone that he has. But at the same time, it cannot be, we're not bottomless pits, even though they think we are. And we can't continue to support this just into infinity. It's not going to work. The people have stood up for themselves. They've proven that. It shouldn't have happened in the first place, because if we'd shown the right gumption, and it wouldn't have happened under Donald Trump by any stretch of the imagination. When he started building up on the border, we should have been sending them the weapons that they needed at that point, and that could have stopped it and nipped it in the bud at that point. Can't do it anymore. And have China come in and say, we want you to rebuild the place. What kind of idiocy is that?
Well, but what good has it done us giving them money? Like, do you see that it's done any good? I think that...
Not so far.
I mean, the strategy's not there. I mean, I just don't see it. And I think we in the U.S. are headed towards a storm that we're not ready for. And it's concerning that we continue to borrow our way out of things. But, it's the generations that come after us that are really going to be paying this debt back.
It is. It's a predicament that we're going to have to go at. We didn't get here, like we say, overnight. It happened incrementally. We're going to have to get out of it incrementally, and even though we're going to be dissatisfied in many cases with how slowly it's happening, but we have to start someplace. One place would be getting rid of our public school system and starting over with that. At least the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, and the late great Milton Friedman, one of the greatest economists who ever lived, said you could take any 3 letters out of the alphabet, it's probably a government agency that ought to be eliminated. There's just way too much. There's way too much government.
Absolutely, and I don't think we've seen the benefit of it yet. So.
Oh, we're seeing the problems.
Yes.
We're reaping the rewards of not paying attention. And that's what this is all about. And we became the greatest country in the world in less than 150 years, the richest country in the world in less than 150 years, when we let the people decide and run the place and do it on the free enterprise system. And if you're a student of the Bible, or even if you've read it a little bit, what happened to Israel when they got away from worshiping God and started worshiping people and things? God gave them bad leaders. They were beaten by their enemies. It was only when they got back down on their knees and started obeying what the Lord wanted that they got back to the top. America will never get back to the top until we get down on our knees. We have to go back to church. We have to start letting God take care of things and not people.
Absolutely, and I think that also means that we need to start caring about each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's been lost on us too. I don't think that we consider other people when we make decisions. We care mostly about how it impacts us, and it's all about you. So I think you're absolutely right, Bill.
We won't get back to the top till we get back on our knees.
And with that, get real, America. We'll see you guys next time.